Hello and welcome to my session. I'm super excited to talk about something that I know will help a lot of people if you're looking to get promoted in 2025 and beyond. We know that promotions are getting harder and harder to come by. There's statistics that are sharing that promotions are actually going down in organizations. And so it will be more and more important for you to learn how to secure so in order for you to secure a promotion in 2025, to learn how to manage up. And we're going to go through all the details. I'm Lashni Plummer. I am an executive coach, a career coach, and a global HR business partner. So I am ready to dive in with you. So first and foremost, our agenda for today is we're going to talk about what is managing up, why it's important, some mindset shifts that usually block people from managing up, and if you want to get promoted. We're going to go through some ABCs of managing up and some manager love languages. This is a signature framework that I created that has helped many people to effectively learn how to prioritize the needs of their manager. And then we're going to talk about outside of your manager, what else can you do to help secure a promotion? And that is going to look like creating some umbrellas in your company and outside of your company as well. So who am I? Why listen to me? What do I have to offer? I've been a global HR business partner for the past 6 years. I have supported executive leaders and everyone else in between, commercial organizations, and every function that you can think of. I have supported an organization of up to 20,000 people. And so I have been involved in every part of the process, from onboarding people to understanding, what has driven people to leave, coaching, mediating, going through exit data, and all the things. And so I've seen what we talk about as it relates to succession planning. I've heard the feedback from associates. I've heard the feedback from managers and calibration sessions. And I have been coaching people for many years, and I'm a certified coach myself. I've done like lots of exit interviews, which I, thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm good at getting to the root cause of why people end up leaving and why they ended up not getting the promotion that they desired and the different things that stopped them. And I also took 360 views of that particular reasons why people didn't get promoted as well. And I am personally strong at managing up. I get feedback about this and my ability to manage my relationship with my leaders. So I have a lot to offer. So why manage up, and what does that even mean? So managing up is, I like to think of it as like you're coaching your coach. And I know a lot of people have a lot of problems with that or thoughts, but another way of thinking about it is it's proactively building a strong collaborative relationship with your manager by truly understanding their priorities. Right. And I know a lot of people have thoughts about that. It's like, well, okay, but what about me? What about my priorities? We'll get there. We'll get there. And then also making sure that you align your work with them in the organization. And so the key things that I would say take away from this slide is it has to be proactive. When you wait to be reactive, which you can, you can like mend relationships and things like that, but it definitely is harder. You want to be proactive as much as you possibly can. And then you want to make it collaborative. A lot of times it becomes this like one-way street in terms of expectations on the manager or on the associate. And that makes it really hard to actually be effective. And then it's about alignment, continuing to be as aligned as you possibly can. And why is managing up important for a promotion specifically? So if you are being proactive, if you're collaborating, if you're communicating well, then you're going to have clear expectations from your manager. You're going to be on the same page. When you're on the same page, you build trust, right? Trust is so critical, right? And I know we know that and it sounds simple, but without trust, everything goes out the window. It doesn't matter how good of an employee or an associate or the results you get. Trust stops people from getting promotions. And so when you have clear expectations, you're on the same page, you build a lot of trust. The other part is like so critical, especially I feel like in 2025, we have become so adversary in organizations, us versus them. But I think if we could get back to like we are all human and we're all in this together, it would save a lot of people a lot of headache. And we have to appreciate that managers are people too. They don't know everything, they don't understand everything. They think sometimes they're clear when sometimes they're not, and so we have to kind of treat them like that as well. I often think about it as like, as I've gotten older now and I am in my mid 30s, I think about how much now I have become the person that is being the parent of my parent, right? And so as we get older, we're growing, we want to do bigger things. We're going to have to come to terms with the fact that managing our manager is just a part of life because they are also very human. And at the very least, and I know this is sometimes a hard pill to swallow, but managers do have high influence. And a lot of times without their support, it's very hard to go to the next level or to the next step. You can, I've seen people do it, but it definitely makes it a bit harder. But we will also talk about ways to increase your chances outside of your manager of getting a promotion. So one thing that stops a lot of people, and I have two mindset shifts. There's more, but I wanted to focus on the two main ones. And the first mindset shift that you want that's probably preventing you from actually managing your manager or managing up and getting clear expectations is my manager's too busy. When we talk about, the business, we talk about, those things, but we don't talk about, my development, their priority. We don't get into that nitty gritty stuff. Like we just like, we talk about like what the fires are and what's happening, and that's it. My manager too busy is not going to cut it. Okay. I'm going to throw and challenge you a little bit to think about like your ability to collaborate with your manager on priorities is going to help you both succeed, right? Managing, this is a part of managing up and making sure that you're grounding them like, hey, I know we're busy and I know we've talked about all the different things, but we also need to talk about X, Y, and Z, right? Like bringing the focus to the forefront. And I know me as being a people leader, it's something that I have appreciated as well, where like I've come in with my agenda or I've come in with my things that are important, but I appreciate when my direct report will come to me and say, but also we need to chat about X, Y, and Z, whether that's the development or it's the challenges. Like I definitely appreciate when they're able to bring that to the forefront as well. So it's not about, thinking about, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to seem like I'm asking too many questions. You want to make sure it's a partnership, right? Like just like you would with your own partner. Like you're not going to manage the day to day and not talk about the big stuff, the deep stuff as well. So you want to think about that too for your manager. You need to share insights, clarify expectations, ask for feedback, make sure you're on the same page so you're not surprised. You don't want to be surprised when, talent sessions are happening behind the scenes and they're coming and giving you feedback and you never had that discussion. So you want to prioritize not only just the work side, the development side as well, and you need to make sure both are happening. Okay, mindset shift number two. My work should speak for itself. I don't really need to talk about and prioritize and collaborate with my manager. I just need to get my head down, get my work done, and things will be okay. No, being in HR, I have seen where this is a big disconnect for people and then people just exit, right? They're like, well, I've been working hard but the manager has other thoughts about like what the things that the person is not meeting. And I know it's not fair that, we expect managers to be able to have proactive conversations. And I agree that should be the case. I also want to offer to you again, managers are human. I think organizations are still struggling with giving very good leadership training and consistent leadership training. So if we take it from that lens, again, if you want to be promoted, it's going to be a shift for you to be, thinking I am responsible for communicating my accomplishments, what I want, my goals, and also clearly communicating with my manager. And also you want to think like your manager has multiple priorities too. They have their own personal goals. They're talking to their manager. They're talking to other team members. They have a lot of things going on. So you don't want to assume that they know exactly what's going on behind the scenes, what you're working on, what your goals are, and like what's holding you back from your development. All Right. So let's shift into some ways that once you get past those mindset things and you really own what is next for you, and the relationship with your manager, this is how you're going to manage this relationship. And I'm going to present to you the ABCs of managing up. It's very simple. But sometimes the most simple things are not always executed or done properly. I mean, I think about my nutrition all the time. Like I know what's healthy and what to do in terms of eating, but there's sometimes I'm just not executing on it. And that can happen here as you think about managing up as well. So the first thing, the A, you want to assume positive intent. Again, I just want to implore you, if we come from a place of empathy, if we come from a place of our manager is a person, our manager has multiple priorities, and our manager does have my best interest at heart, then it will help you be neutral when you're having conversations specifically around like what you want and what your development looks like. And then the second piece is being strategic with your conversations. And that means, again, business things, challenges, and even when you're talking about getting promoted. Now, I often catch people when they are asking for promotion once, the conversations of your end of the year review has happened. If it's happening then and you're already ready for your next thing, it's probably a little too late. It actually is late, right? You want to be having conversations at the right time. You want to be strategic. And that typically means that you want to be having conversations about, what you're working on, what your gaps are, probably a year before you want to get promoted. And I know that sounds crazy. You're like, I'm, probably like trying to get my work done. I'm trying to but this is the reality, right? Like most people are trying to get promoted 18 months, after 18 months or 2 years of being in a role. So you really got to start thinking after 6 months of being in the role, how can I start to understand what exactly are my gaps? What's going to get me to the next step, right? So you want to think about that. You also want to make sure before you drop the bomb on your leader in that conversation that you have conversations 6 months before your next review, that you are thinking about a promotion and you're expecting a promotion, and that will help you a lot to again to understand and close the gap. So you want to think about when you're having your conversations. You want to think about the frequency of talking about it, and then the different parts or topics that relate to you getting a promotion, right? So you want to be strategic. Another thing you really want to think about that I'm finding that a lot of people don't know, there are times when talent conversations are happening in your organization. You want to find out when those are. You want to find out when those are, and you also want to find out who's in the room. That's going to help you a lot with understanding, how often they're talking about talent. It's going to help you understand, who's having conversations about you. And it's going to allow you to, again, make sure you're having those right connections outside of your manager, which we'll get to. And then, collaboration. If you assume positive intent and you come from a place of like, my promotion is a collaborative approach. It's not about, the company seeing my value. It's not about, me having to work crazy hard. It's about me collaborating on what the expectations are. This will change your world, right? Like it will change your world on being collaborative. Just don't assume on any side of anything that you 100% know what your manager is looking for, and don't assume that they again know exactly what you're working on, the challenges you want, or what you want for your next step. You definitely want to make sure you collaborate and make sure that you're both aligned. So let's talk about a little bit about external support. You want to ensure that you have the ability to have a your manager support is really important. It's probably like 75% of the equation. But also in order for you to be successful in managing your manager, you need to have outlets, external support that will help you. And that looks like this. And I'm actually going to go into this a little later as well. But think about communities, masterminds, and also leadership coaching. But we're going to go into that in a different way. Okay, in terms of collaboration, how can you have really, really strong collaboration? The first is again having clear expectations. I can't say this enough. Clear expectations, though, from a practical level, because people say this a lot, but I don't know if they know on a practical level what that means. That means first, in the beginning of the year or when you first start, one, knowing what your manager's objectives are. What are their written down objectives so you can understand those as well and that you can be on the same page because they're probably going to be similar to yours, but they're going to be some different things as well. So it's going to help you know what are they really focused on, what's keeping them up at night. And then you want to have frequent check-ins on what exactly is changing. What is important to them. Again, what is keeping them up at night also. That will help you a ton as things are changing. You don't want to get to the end of the year and be like, well, we were both in the same room and priority A became low on the totem pole and we worked on priority B, but then you're still being held accountable to priority A. You want to have those check-ins to see how things are changing along the way. And then outside of work, you also want to make sure, again, what are the clear expectations for you in order to be promoted? Okay, get very clear things from that. And again, if you treat it as a two-way street, that they are responsible, yes, for giving you feedback. They are also responsible for being proactive and giving you feedback. But if you treat it as a two-way street, and if they drop the ball, that you also are providing them opportunities and saying, hey, I would love to talk about my how I'm showing up. I would love to talk about where I feel like I am on the track to get promoted. What are your thoughts about this as well? Are you open to talking about that next week, or can we talk about this, on X day? But I would love to talk about it within the next 30 days. What do you think? Right. So you can definitely do that, or bringing them proactively. Hey, I just talked to like 6 of my business partners and they actually just all gave me really great feedback. I would love to share that with you. And I would love to send you an email about some of the specifics that they shared with me. Again, treating it like a two-way street. And then we're going to talk about something super unique, manager love languages, so you can truly understand the priorities of your manager. Okay, conversation. So when you think about the conversations that you have, again, you want to ensure your manager's objectives are top of mind. You also want to have those frequent check-ins, as I mentioned. And then the last piece that I haven't mentioned so far is document, document, document. So I think this is where people get really tripped up. We don't want to come across as like, oh, the document police. But I can I can testify that I have had multiple times where I had an alignment about something positive with my manager, where she agreed to let me work on this project, a very large project. And I worked on the project very independently. And then once the project was done, I was like, hey, here's the final project. It's for company wide. Here's my wins. And she was like, oh my goodness, like, when did you start working on this project? And I was like, what? And so because I had documented it, I had emailed it, I was able to forward her. And I was like, yep, you agreed to, this project a couple months ago. So I just, you want to remove the element because again, we're all human. People have life things that happen, and you don't want your future to be caught up just because someone has a bad memory or someone has competing things going on in their life or in their own work world, right? So document, document, document. All right, let's talk about the manager love languages. Super exciting. So, if you're familiar with love languages at all, so love languages is a concept that was created really about relationships. A lot of people use it for more romantic relationships where, if it's all about the premise of people have ways that they like to receive love. And so like my husband's acts of service. So like he receives love by if you do things for him. Now the manager love languages work very similarly. So it's about knowing how your manager prefers to lead and operate. So similar to love languages is how we typically tend to operate the way we like to receive love or how we like to manage. But if you want to get promoted, right, and you want to be strategic about getting promoted, we need to learn your manager's language, your manager's love language, that's different, right? Probably different from yours. If it's the same, cool, great. But a lot of times you're different from different from people. And so you want to learn that because You want to make sure that you're meeting their again, their expectations. It's going to help you foster better communication if you know what their priorities are. You're gonna, because you know their priorities, because you know end up gaining credibility with them because they trust what you're doing. You're gonna gain more autonomy and have ability to do more things and do exciting things. And so there's a benefit to you, not only from a promotion perspective, because a lot of people think like, well, if I only work like how my manager likes, then that's not very motivating. But trust me, most majority of people who do this, you end up getting more autonomy because they take the bricks off and they're like, I don't need to be involved in certain things. Like, she's got it. She knows what I'm looking for. He or she understands exactly what's going on. I don't need to step in, right? I don't need to step in. I don't need more, or I can let them run with X, Y, and Z. Okay. And so here's a breakdown of manager love languages and how you can assess. And then I'll also go through how you can think about this in terms of your promotion. And so, there's 5 different ones, and most managers have multiple, but they typically will lean towards one of the 5, and maybe 2 at most, right? Every manager will have a bit of of many of them. And so if you have a manager that really focuses on like making sure, you're a culture fit and that you understand the culture, that will probably say things to you about the culture or the specifics about things that are important to your culture. So there are different, like one of the things in my previous culture was, understanding KPIs and reporting on the KPIs and Excel and like getting to root cause. And so that could be something that's really important in order for you to be promoted. That they need to see on a day-to-day basis, that they need to make sure that you understand and implement, and fit into the culture. Now, of course, with any of these, again, you might be thinking, okay, but I want to be authentic. I want to be myself. And you can absolutely lead with your own values. You can absolutely lead with what makes sense to you. So, like for me, although I felt like not everything needed to be measured, I found ways like, what did I want to measure? How could I come up with KPIs that made sense, and make it fun for me, right? Make it fun, make it light, and not make it just so like, oh, well, if I only have to do what they want me to do, then like, this feels very constraining. It doesn't have to. You can put your own edge or your own flair on it as well. Okay, so then the second one is about leadership. So they need to understand that you influence or build followership. So you'll hear a lot with like, how are you influencing, or how are you getting buy-in, or I need you to build followership on X, Y, and Z to get X, Y, and Z done. So that's valuing a lot of leadership, and they may need to see that for you in order for you to get promoted, especially if you want to be a people leader. This will definitely show up for a lot of leaders. Okay. All right, so going on to skill. So skill is that they want to see a specific skill. So a lot of people over index and think like, oh, well, if I work on my sales skill, or if I work on my, getting my PHR, if I'm in HR, or if I work on getting a project manager certification, then that'll get me promoted. And I would say this is probably one of the lower ones. Like, I don't see a lot of managers that have this. A lot of managers really focus on like the leadership piece or the independence piece. But, there are some times in order to get promoted or go to the next step that you need a certain skill. And so you will hear, I need you to get experience in X, right? And so you'll be able to do that. The second piece is independence, and independence and time can feel like there's some overlap, but there's some slight difference here. So independence is all about, I need you to manage like a project that has ambiguity to it, or I need you to manage the ambiguous thing, be agile, or, there's no SOP, or there's no training for something, but I need you to figure something out, right? And so that's where, there's some managers that really, really value your independence. And this would probably, if I had to rank them, this is probably the number one thing that I have seen in terms of importance for managers, especially because there's a lot of change management happening in organizations, and managers need help. They need help in order to feel like they can promote individuals. And it's just a number one skill right now in 2025. All right. And then for time, I need you to lead a project from start to finish. Okay. So this is a little bit like independence because you're running with it, but it's more about like, time, taking things off the person's plate. What can you take off the person's plate? And you will hear them say, like, I really need like help with X, Y, and Z, or I really need you to take stuff a plate, or like this really has me up at night. Like that's the type of verbiage you will hear. And so for any of these, right, if you hear these things, then again, you want to make sure you're prioritizing and understanding exactly what they need and bringing those things to your one-on-one conversations, bringing those priorities on top of the other things that you're excited about, on top of the other business things. But if you know your manager's is independence and you have a lot of ambiguity, you want to make sure, okay, hey, this week, at your one-on-one this week, I actually managed X, Y, and Z. I had X, Y, and Z challenges and I was able to overcome them. But I just want to keep you in a loop, and I want to keep you communicated. Is there anything else that I'm not thinking about? What else can I do to make sure that this is on track? Do you have any concerns? Okay. So understanding their language will help you prioritize, because again, if a lot of us, like, okay, if your priority is about leadership and you're like really focused on key stakeholders, but your manager is over here on independence, that's not gonna matter as much. So you can still do this because it energizes you, but again, you want to also make sure you're doing this over here and then communicating both of them, right? Because both of them are important, but again, you want to make sure it's not just what you are excited about or what you think is important or what you value. You want to make sure it's also what your manager values. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful. I would love to hear any feedback. If you have any questions, I'll also share how you can connect with me. But I would love to hear how this resonates and lands with you. If people that have implemented this or understand this, and people do this in different ways, right? There's so many other ways where we try to find common language with our leaders and with our managers in order to move forward. But once you have a common understanding from what your manager desires or wants or operates, the world is your oyster. People get promoted. Like this is literally what happens. I remember, understanding what my leader prioritized, and really it was around, at some point it was around time. She really needed me to take off of her plate our recruiting, and she needed to know that it was all she needed was updates on how things were performing and what was going. And once I realized that, I created a specific meeting just for recruiting with her. And then I made sure that I had regular updates. I sent email updates and I prioritized it differently. And when I gave her those updates, and she appreciated it, because it was also something that she was under fire about, or she got a lot of questions about from leadership. So it was important for her to make sure she was on her game. And so me helping her be on her game and taking that off of her plate was something she highly, highly valued. And it's no wonder that I was promoted 4 times in 5 years, because I was able to, again, effectively make sure I'm managing what my manager's priorities were. All right, hope that helps. All right, so thinking about outside of your manager, because again, managers are really important to manage, but you also want to have like a safety net outside of your manager, because they're not perfect, and there's also multiple people in the room before you're having a promotion conversation, or while we're having promotion conversations. So you want to have what I call a couple umbrellas. So the company umbrella is see advocates, anybody that can advocate for you, and a lot of times this is going to be senior leaders. You want to know, who can like be, who's in the ear of your manager, who does your manager trust, so that you can have conversations with them, so you can share your work with them, and be strategic about how you leverage those relationships. You also want influencers, so people again that are in the room when they're talking about promotions, people that are understanding the succession planning, the people that so that's your general managers, that's people in your vertical. So if you're in HR, anybody who's like your manager's peers in HR, or if you're in sales, like anybody who's in your sales, who your sales manager peers, your 1-over-1 will also be a strong influencer. So you want to make sure you have those individuals, but you also want to have advocates too, that are, business partners, people that you talk to on a day-to-day basis, like having those in your back pocket as well. And then people who are skill builders. So if you're really working on something like change management, or again, if it's something like a technical skill, meaning, if you're in engineering, you're like working on a specific skill, like you want to find people that where the skills where you don't have those, that could potentially be something that would block you from a promotion. You want to find those people so that you can get input before you do the thing. So for me, change management was like a skill that I didn't necessarily have. So I found people in the organization that had a strong change management background, and they did it in some shape or form. And so whenever I presented something that had to do with change management or a communication plan, I went to them, right? So that I could get support, so that I didn't feel uncomfortable. And again, that I was able to advocate to my manager that this is how I'm independent as well. And then external umbrella. So again, I talked about this a little bit earlier, but this is about communities, masterminds, and then leadership coaching. So think of stuff outside of your organization. A lot of people pigeonhole themselves to getting support inside the organization, which is very helpful, right? Those people have context on your day to day, but you can also get a lot of support outside of your organization. And I have found this to be so critical in my career. And so if things come up and I just like, I don't want to bring it up to anybody in my organization, just because like maybe I don't want to like taint the view of certain people or whatever it is, that I can go to people outside of my organization. So that is in communities. There's Facebook communities, there's LinkedIn communities, there's professional organizations. You can leverage all those types of communities. Even church and anywhere you volunteer, like thinking about that. So masterminds. So masterminds, there are lots of masterminds out there where literally they're helping you solve problems. So you can bring bigger problems to masterminds where you want to get support. And then finally, leadership coaching. I don't think enough people do leadership coaching. And if there's one thing that will help you manage your manager, know how to have these hard conversations, help you with the stress management of managing your manager, help you with like navigating the politics of different things, have like a continued neutral view, is going to be leadership coaching. So highly recommend leadership coaching if you've never done it before. I will always have leadership coaching or a leadership coach forever and ever. Okay, so let's talk actions and being actionable. All right. So if you want to take everything that kind of we talked about and like put it into an actual plan, here's how you can think about it. And I think about it in a 90-day sprints. And so this is really great if you first start a role, but you can do this at any time. Okay. And with beginning of 2025, you're probably hearing this in February. You want to think about your first 30 days, think ramping up all your relationships. Meet with like your HR team. I think a lot of people wait too late to meet with their HR team just to foster a relationship. I know as an HR leader, I appreciated having and fostering relationships with people, and it also helped me be an advocate for many people in the organization, especially when we had calibration sessions or we had succession planning. I'm like, yeah, actually they are a strong communicator. We talked about X, Y, and Z. Or you know what? I see them as being strong in X, Y, and Z. This is what they've shared. So if you can control your narrative with HR, and also get support in a different avenue than you ever have in the past, if you've not maintained a relationship with HR in the past. So meet with HR business partner, meet with overall business partners, like have regular cadence. Don't just meet with people just to talk about business. Talk about, build rapport, and, don't wait till you need someone to try to build the rapport. Definitely have a relationship with senior leaders. I coach a lot of people on having road shows. So going through 15, 20-minute coffee chats with senior leaders just to show your face. I hear way too often where leaders like, I just don't know who they are. Right. So you don't want to not get promoted because they don't know who you are. Right. Like that's crazy. And it's just the truth of the matter. Right. I'm giving you the secrets. I'm giving you, what is truly the case. How can people promote you if they don't know exactly what you can do? And it's not, leaving it to own the work speaks for itself. It's going to be really difficult, especially if you end up getting something that's like a pretty average score. Right. Meet with skip level leaders for sure. Try to do that on a semi-regular cadence as well. And then don't forget to meet with like people outside of outside of your own function. I think a lot of some of the best relationships I've had and people that have advocated for me were people that were in other departments that I just had a conversation with that just was like, oh my God, she has great energy, or oh my God, like she has really helped with X, Y, and Z, right? So definitely continue to network and build relationships with people outside of your own department. And then in the 60 days, the next overall in the 60 days is just continue to make sure your expectations are aligned and continue to realign. As I mentioned, review your goals, leaders, and objectives. Understand the org objectives, the 3 to 5 year plan, the strategic plan, and then learn where there has been failure hotspots. So this keeps you in the know of like what has worked well in your organization and what hasn't. And so this will help you know where not to try to be innovative or where you need to be innovative. So thinking about that in terms of your overall plan as well. And then in the 90 days, like really keep digging into the business. Too many people wait to think about the KPIs and the metrics at the end of the year, right? You want to be thinking about looking at those on a minimum of quarterly basis if your organization doesn't look at them regularly. So looking at your KPIs, looking at comparing them to what they looked like last year to this year in the quarter, comparing it to your peers. Like that's one of my favorite metrics is like comparing to like, how are my metrics better than my peers' metrics? And not in a boasty way, but just to show like, okay, here is how I am doing things differently. Here is how I am adding value. Here is why I am promotable worthy, right? So go into the field, go into different businesses, different parts of the business, attend business meetings, ask to go to the business meetings. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go to the business meetings. Understand where you are from a KPI perspective. What are the top KPIs that the organization is looking for? And KPIs is just literally what are they measuring, right? How is performance? And again, learn what is overall the 3 to 5 year plan. Okay. Some key promotion principles. Again, if you didn't hear it throughout the presentation, trust, independence is a high one. And then one that we didn't talk about is really stress management. So I find a lot of people have a hard time managing up just because they feel stressed about the whole thing of it, right? That they feel stressed about having the conversation with their manager. Again, they don't want to come across as either a know-it-all. They don't want to come across as difficult. They don't want to do too much. And so stress management is going to be really important to, again, keep you in that neutral space, right? So if you keep trust, you will build, maintain, and keep it. That's the most important piece. Create the right support to make sure you're independent. So everything that we've talked about will help you be independent and more independent because again, that's the number one thing that managers are looking for. And then it will help, stress management will help you have fun inside of work and fun outside of work, right? Keeping it neutral. And then the last piece in terms of keeping it actionable and keeping yourself top of mind. Again, I gave you a timeline. If you're looking to be promoted with 18 months to 2 years, your timeline is a little tight, right? And so you want to make sure that you are putting yourself first. Too many of us don't put ourselves first. And in order to do that, make sure your development is top of mind. Don't wait till 2 years and then get feedback that you need to develop on a specific skill. If you're having those expectations and conversations with your manager, then you'll understand, okay, what is one skill that I can work on for year one, right? Something simple. You're still learning your role, but you could still work on something simple to make sure that they show like I still work on my development and I prioritize my development. And even if I don't get promoted at this organization, it's probably a skill I can take somewhere else. Okay. And so then you also want to think about a future skill. So something that you probably will need for your next role, especially if you're thinking about like promoting to people leader, like what else is it that you need? So don't let your development fall by the wayside. Too many people come to me and they're like, well, I didn't know that I needed to work on my communication skills, right? I didn't know that I needed to work on like understanding how to do change management. And then now they're at year 2, they're ready, like mentally ready, and they feel like they're doing everything, but they didn't work on that one future skill. And now it's considered a block, right? A blocker, is what we call it. So make sure you have no blockers and you're working on your future skills. Okay. And then the last thing is always leadership skills in general. And so, a future skill could be a leadership skill, but it could be something different as well. Okay. It could be a technical skill. It could be something around influence. It's like these are the top ones that I see. It's going to be something probably very technical, or it's going to be influence and communication. Those are typically the top leadership skills that companies are asking for their associates, and crucial conversations, which I kind of lump into communication. Okay, you made it. You made it. So, some key takeaways. If you want to manage up well to get promoted, then managing up will be important. It will be 100% important. It is not easy. I'm not gonna lie. Managing your manager is not a hard task, but again, it's like parenting the parent, right? It's, at some point, it's gonna happen. You're gonna have to do it, and the sooner that you're able to just kind of like think of it as a business as usual, the easier it will be for you to take that on without it being something that's your full-time job. It shouldn't be your full-time job, but definitely, 25% of what you do, once you get to a certain stage, is probably what I would say is reasonable or normal. Leverage the manager love languages to meet the priorities of your manager, right? So that's one tool that you can use. There are other tools that you can use to think about the priorities of your manager, that you could look at, but this is one quick way to understand your leader's priorities and just make your plans around those priorities. But you can also prioritize what you want to do too, as long as that is something that you put to the forefront. And then make sure you have your overall umbrellas, the company one and external, and create your 90-day plan to make sure that you're promotable and that everybody knows you're promotable. Okay, you build those relationships, you build the trust, and you prioritize your own development. Okay. All right. I hope this was helpful. Connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm around. Happy for questions. And I look forward to hearing more about your promotion in 2025. Take care.